All right, so another thing you'll want to make note of is that when it comes to slope and direction, there's one of four categories that the slope of a line can fall into. Okay, so here's one situation. Notice how this line rises as you go from left to right, and left to right specifically like you're reading the sentence in a book. Okay, I also like to think of this as a line that's going uphill. Okay, so if you specifically stick to left to right, this line is going uphill, even though it does actually travel in both directions. Okay, well, if you think about the numbers for slope, let's say I pick this point and this point. To get from here to here, I'd have to rise in a positive direction, and then I'd run in a positive direction. And so when I put this in slope form, positive over a positive, and I think of that fraction as division, positive divided by a positive is a positive answer. Okay, so what that means is that any line that rises uphill has a positive slope. Okay, the numbers will just work out where the number is positive. Okay, as opposed to this situation where if I'm going left to right again, the line falls, or as I like to think of it, it goes downhill. So any downhill line, if I again just pick two random points, the rise to get from here to here would be negative, and the run would be positive. So if I put that in slope form, rise divided by run, that would give me a negative answer. So anything downhill from left to right, we say it has a negative slope. Okay, so basically, you see something going uphill, you should be getting a positive answer for your slope. If you see something going downhill, you should be getting a negative answer for your slope. Uphill positive, downhill negative. Now, there's two other scenarios which are fairly rare, but we do need to know about them, is what about this? What if the line is perfectly horizontal? In other words, it's just flat. Okay, well, if you think about this, let's say I pick 2 points. The rise, I wouldn't have to rise at all. So in this case, the rise would be 0, and then the run would be some positive number. But then 0 divided by anything is just 0, which makes sense. If you think about it like a mountain, if it doesn't go uphill or downhill, the slope is just a flat slope. It has a slope, it's just flat. Okay, so this would be a slope of 0. Anytime you've just got a flat slope, it's 0. Okay, now, which is different from no slope. No slope is something else, and this is one thing I want to caution you against. A lot of people think a slope of 0 means no slope. Okay, this picture here has a slope. It's a flat slope. Okay, but our last category is different. If the line is vertical, this has no slope. Okay, which is different from a slope of 0. Okay, and here's why. Here's why it's no slope. If I again pick 2 points, the rise is going to be some number, but then I have no run number. I don't need to run across left or right because I'm directly above the original point. So the math would look like this, some number divided by 0. Okay, but what we've learned in math, that anytime you're doing fractions and you're dividing by 0, that this is illegal. And what we call this is undefined, meaning this can't be done in the real world. It's an undefined operation. You cannot divide by 0 in math, so we call this undefined, which means it has no slope. All right, so what we get are these 4 possible categories. A positive slope is an uphill slope that rises from left to right. A negative slope is anything that goes downhill, that it falls from left to right. A slope of 0 has a slope, it just happens to be a flat slope. And this is the only one that we call it no slope, or an undefined slope, because the line goes vertical. The way I like to think of it is everything that you could possibly drive a car on has a slope. This has an uphill slope. I could drive a car uphill. I could drive a car downhill. I could drive a car on a flat surface. The one thing I couldn't do, though, is drive a car down a cliffside. Okay, so it has no slope. Okay, so positive slope uphill, negative slope downhill, but these two don't make that mistake. Slope of 0 has a slope. It's a flat slope, but undefined slope, where it goes vertical, is no slope. Okay, don't mix these last two up. All right, so that's your lesson on slope. A little bit on how to calculate the actual number that goes with each of these slopes by finding rise and run, and then a little bit about the 4 different categories that each of those slope answers can fall into: positive, negative, 0, or undefined.